Continuing with discussion of cognitive development, we are moving on from Piaget to a different theorist. In this case, it's a Russian theorist and researcher named Lev Vygotsky. And Vygotsky's ideas were a little different than Piaget's about how individuals learn to think and understand their world. One difference between Piaget and Vygotsky is that Piaget emphasized the individual to a great extent. My cat just knocked a bunch of stuff over. You okay, dude? So Piaget talked about learning happened because the individual was curious and they wanted to learn and they had to explore to get information about the world. And Vygotsky didn't disagree with that, but he added the idea. He also believed in the importance of other people, of social interactions. And so he talked about other people in a child's environment, it could be adults, older children, as being sort of teachers for the child to learn from. Sort of the child was in an apprenticeship trying to learn about the world. And two very important concepts we get from Vygotsky are the zone of proximal development and scaffolding. So let's start with the zone of proximal development, which sometimes people will abbreviate it as ZPD, or I've even heard some people call it the ZOPED. All right, I often just say the zone of proximal development. And I always like to think of this as the just right level of difficulty for a task. And when you are teaching a child, when you are guiding a child and trying to teach them a new skill, trying to teach them about the world, it is helpful to keep them in the zone of proximal development. The zone is determined by what the child can do on their own independently and what they can do with assistance. All right? So you want things to be challenging, but not impossible for the child. You want to have that just right kind of medium level of difficulty where it's possible that they could move forward, that they could advance, that they could master a new skill with assistance, but you don't want it so easy that they're like, there's no motivation. It's not interesting if it's too easy. So if they already know how to do something, let's say you try to teach them, you want to teach them 2 plus 2, and they already know 2 plus 2. They're like, I know 2 plus 2 is 4. And you keep going on about 2 plus 2, the child's going to be like, I already know this. Why? This is not interesting. This is not exciting for me. But if you present them with some math, like maybe they don't know subtraction yet, and you try to say, okay, let's talk about what 4 minus 2 is. And this is something that they're not going to get right away. They need assistance, but you can provide that assistance by walking them through to try to figure out that subtraction. That is challenging for them, not impossible, challenging, all right? And that's what you want. You want things to be challenging. You also want to make sure you don't do things for the child. They have to figure it out. You're just there to help them get unstuck. One way that you can help them get unstuck when they're working on problems is through something called scaffolding. And scaffolding involves assistance where you essentially provide just enough assistance to get them unstuck, you know, when they do come to a part that they can't do on their own. I want to check on my cat because my cat's got something in his mouth that's got me nervous. Dude, what you got? Oh man, gotta love it. He likes to be a guest star in these things. All right, and so we're talking about scaffolding. Scaffolding is providing assistance, all right? So you let them get started. They're doing it. You're not doing it for them. Maybe they're putting a puzzle together. And instead of doing the puzzle for them, you say, okay, let's get started. Show me what you got. And they start working on the puzzle. And they'll get to a part where they can't do it. It's too hard. They don't know what to do next. You can step in and say, try this one next. And they're, oh, okay, yeah. And then they start to see the patterns coming together and they can do it on their own, all right? So scaffolding is providing assistance, but just enough assistance that they can mostly do it on their own. You can also use scaffolding for things like teaching them to tie their shoes. You know, a lot of tying the shoes is like, all right, let's see how much you can do, and you wait for them to fumble. Wait for them to fumble at one of the steps, and then you say, okay, let me do that. Now let's see what, and then you keep getting them unstuck until eventually they can do it on their own. And it just feels so good for them to be able to do it on their own, that you know, they worked on it. You were there just kind of like a supervisor to help out and provide assistance when needed. All right, another thing that we get from Vygotsky talked about the importance of things like language and interactions. And he also gave us the idea, and this may not be in the textbook, but he also gave us the idea that private speech is important for problem solving, and this is essentially talking to yourself. When adults do it, they look down upon them. All right, even though I walk across campus all the time, being like, all right, what do I gotta do? I gotta go to class next. I got a quiz next, and people might look at me. I'm like, look, I need to make sure I don't forget these things. But with children, they tend to do this when they have a difficult, challenging problem. They will work through it out loud, and eventually it becomes more silent, more internal, and we would just call it thinking after a while. But this private speech was also something that Vygotsky talked about. All right, now in the next video, I'm going to talk a little bit about something called information processing theory.